Hi guys, welcome back. So today I've got a tutorial where we're going to be looking at creating this gallery you see on our screen. So you can see when we select the like the kind of div, you can see we get the image fade in and the kind of grid item expands. Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool effect. When you click on an active div, it all goes back to normal. Yeah, I think it's quite a cool, clean, minimal gallery layout. So yeah, let's just jump straight into it. Cheers guys. Right, so let's get started with this project, guys. I've just got an index.html file, a style.css, and an app.js file. I've also got this font called ivar display. I've got this off from online. Use whatever font you want for this. I'll probably start by using the Google font, and then we'll change it to this after. And then I've just got an images folder here containing 6 random images from Unsplash. I've gone for images where the width is larger than the height. Okay. So just kind of that sort of rectangular shape. So if we now come into our index.html file, I'm just going to get some boilerplate up and running. So we just do the emit here, the exclamation mark. In the title, I'm just going to change that to gallery, like so. And then in the link, we'll link to our in the header. Sorry, we'll link to our style.css. And then in the body, we'll just link to our app.js file. So we do a script source and then app.js like so. Okay, and then put that down the bottom. So then coming into the body, first we're going to do is our header. That's just going to be the element where our, the gallery heading is contained. So we'll just say div of a class of header like so. And then in here, I'm just going to have, we're going to use a span of a class of heading. And you'll see what we're using a span to contain this H1. I'll just say gallery, all uppercase. And we're using a span to contain this because we're going to set the overflow of this span to hidden, so we can kind of have that kind of fade up reveal effect when we load the page. Okay, so that's why we contain this in the span element here. That's it for our header. Now underneath this, let's create a new kind of div. We'll give this a class of grid. This is just going to contain kind of the 6 inner divs containing our images. Okay, so we'll just say the first thing we're going to split this grid into 2 rows. Okay, so just create another div of a class of row inside this grid, and then in here we're just going to add 3 grid items. Okay, so I'll just say grid -item to create that div, and then within an item we're going to have 2 further inner divs. So this is going to contain a div of a class of title, like so. And in the first title, I'm just going to say, we'll do a H2. And I'll just say for now, mountains. And then after this, I'm going to just include a span. And then in this span, I'm just going to say 01. Okay, we're just going to number each of our images. Okay, and I'm using the spans because we're going to style this differently to the main header here. We're going to make this number a lot smaller. Okay, kind of out of that, and then I'm just going to include a H5, and we'll just say here details, like so. Okay, and then if we come out of this grid item, so this title here, underneath this we want to say, this is where we're going to house our image. So we'll just say a div of a class of image -wrap. Okay, we're going to wrap our images in a parent container, and we're going to set the overflow of this to hidden, so we can kind of get that scale effect as we open the relevant image when we click on the kind of grid item div. And then I'm going to say here div of a class of image, or img. This is going to be the div that contains the image. We're going to set the background using CSS. Okay, so that's it for one grid item. So now what I can do is I'll just select all this grid item section here, and we'll just copy it down 2 times. Okay, we want 3 items per row. So now I'm going to come out of our first row here, and underneath that, actually what I'll do, I do need to change the kind of headings here. Okay, so we set this to 2 and 3, and then for the second one we'll just say, I'll give it a title of architecture, like so. And this third one will go for, what was the image? Okay, it's just that kind of abstract, so I'll just say abstract. Again, use what images and titles you want. This is what I'm just using for this project. So we'll just say abstract, like so. So that's it for our first row. So now if we, I'm just going to copy this whole row actually, because we can reuse this for the second row. So we'll come out of this. And then, so we'll just renumber these. So this will be 6, 5, and 4. And I'll give this a title, I think here, winter. And then the 5th, we had kind of a street, so I'll just say urban. And then this last image, what's it? Oh, it's like a sort of commute train station. So I'll just say commute, like so. Okay, I'm going to open this in live server. Okay, so I'm not looking that pretty at the moment, but we'll change that soon. I think that's pretty much it for our HTML now. So if we move to our CSS, close this down, it's the CSS. Okay, now the first thing I want to do here is I'm going to be using CSS variables in this project. So I'm just going to set the kind of, the two variables we're going to be using. They're both going to be color variables, okay? So to do that, you just just do root here, and then we're going to just set the first variable, which is going to be our background color. I'm going to go for a dark color, so we'll just say 131313. It's kind of a really dark gray, and then text color, and we'll just set that to white for now. Okay, as you can see, we get our colors up here. These are our CSS variable colors. Next thing we want to do is just get our global kind of settings. So here I'm just going to say margin 0, padding 0, box size of border box. And that's it for our globals. Now kind of here, let's just select our, you can see what that's done. That's just kind of removed all the kind of default margins and paddings. If we just select the HTML and body next. Here I'm just going to set the background color, and we're going to use that CSS variable. To do that, use the var keyword, and then we're just going to say bg color, like so. When we save that, you can see now our background's gone that nice kind of dark, that nice dark grey. And then I'll just set the color of our text to be, use the CSS variable again, and we'll just say text color. So now you can see we get a nice white text. What I'll do for now as well, let's just get that Google Poppins font, just to make it look a bit cleaner and nicer. I really like this Poppins font. I'm going to use let's use the really thin version actually. I'll just copy this link section here, and then we'll just include that in our header. I'll come under the CSS, tidy that up a bit, paste that in, and then in our style.css, we'll place that in our global settings for now. So now that I've saved that, you can see we have that nice Poppins font applied. So the next thing I want to do is if we come to our header section next, so we'll come under here, I'll just say dot header. Remember we gave our header section this main div of the class of header here. So we're just going to say for our header, I'm going to position this absolute. I'm going to say a width, say 25, no, width of 100%, make it fill the screen. I want to give this a height of 25%. I want to make position relative actually. No, I'll keep it absolute for now. We'll just say top 0 and left 0, like so. Okay, and then underneath this, I'm just going to say, we're going to set a padding of, I just want a 20 pixel padding, just give it a bit of white space. Can't see it probably because the other text in the way, but if I just make this relative for now, just to, we can make it relative actually. Yeah, so you can see we get that nice kind of padding now. And then underneath this, that'll do for a header. Let's just select the heading section next. Okay, so heading. Remember, this is the span elements, this heading span here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say, I'm going to give this a line height. We'll say 70 pixels because that's the size we're going to set our main H1 text. Again, I'm going to say position absolute. And then I'm going to say here, we want position absolute, and then I'm going to say bottom. I want to make it 20 pixels from the bottom, and then I'm going to say overflow hidden. Remember we was going to set the overflow hidden on the span to make it so we couldn't see the text. Let me just see what's going on here because I feel like that should be bigger. Yeah, okay. Got a height of 25%. Maybe it's because I need to, let's set the height. So we say width 100% and height of 100 viewport heights. Okay, yeah, that's better. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's remove that background color. Okay, so next thing we want to do here is I'm going to say, so we've got the overflow hidden. I then just want to transform. And I want to rotate this by 5 degrees. Okay, because we're going to have this kind of slight slant effect as we load the page, and it will kind of roll up. And then the next thing I want to do here is I'm just going to say transition. We'll set a transition of 0.5 seconds, like so. Okay, so now that that's done, next thing I want to do here is select the heading H1. So we'll say dot heading and then H1. And for this, I'm just going to say font weight. So this is selecting the actual H1 element within that heading span. And we're going to set that just to 300 for now. I want a 300 font weight. It's quite a light font weight. And then I'm just going to say font size of 70 pixels. Okay, to make it quite big. And then I'm going to say transform, say translate Y. So on the Y axis, and I'll translate at 100%. Now you'll see when we do this, you can no longer see the text. That's because this overflow is set to hidden and we've translated it 100% down. Okay, so we can't see it overflowing. And then what we're going to do is going to fade it up when we load the page. And again, I'm just going to set the transformation on this to 0.5 seconds. So nice and quick. Okay, and then what I also might do here as well is I'm just going to make this, set the rotate on this to, I just uncomment that for now. If I rotate this by 5 deg as well, so we get more of a rotation there. And then let's just set that back to hidden. Okay. So now what we're going to do, coming underneath this, underneath the heading H1, I'm just going to say so when we apply the show class, okay, so we're selecting our heading, and then we're going to use JavaScript to apply a class called show to this heading. So when we do that, what we want to do is we just want to set the transformation to rotate 0 degrees, so bring it back to the original straight position. And then we'll also do the same thing for the heading show H1, say heading, and when it's got the class list of show, we want the H1 element within that show. We're going to transform, and then we can copy these and just set them to both to 0, okay? Just to let them fade up. So we set that to 0, and we'll set this to 0 deg as well. I'll set that to percent. Okay. So you'll see now what I mean if we apply that show class to this. So if I come here, so if we say, come after this, we'll say show, you'll see we get the text appear. So we're going to be applying this show class with JavaScript, okay? Let's take that out for now. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm just going to select the H2 elements, which you'll remember are these headings here, so this mountains, architecture. So select those, we'll say H2. I'm going to say, we're going to give them letter spacing of 1 pixel, just to space out the letters. And then I'm going to say font size. I want to make these 18 pixels, just make it a bit smaller. And then I'm going to say text transform as well. And I want them all to be uppercase. Okay, so that capitalizes all the letters. And underneath this, let's select the H5 elements next, which is the details text. We'll say H5. And here I'm going to say, we'll say font size of 12 pixels, make them a lot smaller. And then I'm going to say position, we'll say absolute, and bottom of 0. Now this looks a bit weird for now, but they'll come into shape when we apply the kind of positioning on the parent divs for these grid items. Okay, and then what I want to do here as well is I'm just going to select span. Okay, and then remember the span are, if we just, it's them numbers. So you'll see all of the numbers go red. So we're just going to be applying to the effects to these numbers. And all I want to do with these is just set the font size. We're just going to set that to, we'll say 10 pixels. Okay, make them nice and small. Take that red writing off as well, red colouring off. Okay, so now underneath this, next thing we want to do, we're going to style our actual grid section next. Okay, so if we come underneath this, we'll say .grid. We're going to position this absolute. And from the top, we'll say 25%, put it underneath the header. And then I'm going to say a width of 100%. We'll say a height of 75% just to fill the remainder of the screen vertically. And then we'll say we want to display this with flexbox, so say display flex. Okay, and then you'll see now the two kind of rows, they're appearing next to each other. We don't want that, we want them to appear underneath each other. So to do that, we'll just say flex direction, column. You can see now they've gone back underneath each other. And then, yeah, I'm just going to set a transition on this to 1 second. And we'll also set the opacity initially at 0 because we're going to be fading this in. Okay, but for the sake of when we're building it, we'll just keep that commented for now, just so we can see what we're working with. Now, come underneath this, next thing I want to do is select the row, the 2 rows. So we'll say .row, and again I'm going to display flex. So we use flexbox to display these. And then with these, we're going to set the rows a height of 50% as well. Okay, so you can see now they're spaced out nicely. And then we're also just going to say here, transition of 0.3 seconds. Okay, this is for the kind of expand animations we're going to be applying to the rows. Okay, because they're going to be adjusting height when we select certain grid items. Now, underneath this, let's select our grid items next. We'll say .grid-item. And then here, we're going to say position relative. And then we're going to give these all a height of 100%. Just to fill the row container. And you can see that we've set the position of relative. The details go to the bottom of each individual grid item. Okay, and then underneath this, we're just going to say, we're going to set the borders for these. So we'll say border, but we're not going to do the full border. We're just going to do the border top. Okay, and then we're going to say here 1px solid, and we're just going to use the text color. So we'll say variable text color. Okay, so you can see we've got our border tops, and then underneath this, we're just going to say border right. Do the same thing for border right. We'll just say 1 pixel solid var text color. Okay, so the reason I've done it like this is because you'll notice if we, for example, if I just do if we comment this out, we just do border 1 pixel solid white, you'll see, you can't really notice it now, but usually you get like kind of crossover So I've kind of done it this way just to make it something like, for example, you'll see that the borders look thicker sometimes. So that's why I've done it this way, just to make it kind of look a lot, more consistent. Okay, so next thing I want to do here is we're just going to say, I want to give these grid items all a flex of 1. So say flex 1. Okay, and you can see now that's kind of spaced them out all evenly along the rows. Okay, so now what we want to do is I'm just going to set the cursor to pointer. And then we're just going to give these grid items a transition of 0.3 seconds as well, just for that kind of animation effect. And then we're going to say will change flex. It's because we're going to be applying changes to the number, this flex number, when we select on certain grid items. You'll see that when we come to the JavaScript section. I'm going to give these all a padding of 10 pixels just to give them a bit of white space. You can see now I've got the white space there. And then we're also just going to say overflow hidden. Okay, and then see now, because if we don't set that, you'll see they go a bit out of yeah, you can see we get that kind of weird effect happening because some of the titles are longer than others. So if you set the overflow to hidden, that's then rectified. Okay, what I also want to do here actually is I just want to add a class here, because you can see it looks funny when we got this right border here at the end, so I'm going to remove that. So to do that, if we come to our third grid item, and I'm just going to set a class of end as well on there. Want to do that for the 6th item as well. So just come to your grid item and add end, like so. Okay, and then we can use that class to style it and just say border none. What I want to do under here, so that's it for our grid item. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to say active, and then we're going to change the flex number to 4, and that will expand the active div. And then we're also just going to set an expand and set that flex to 4 as well. Okay, so we have to do 2 of those. So we need one div of a class of active and one for when we want to kind of expand the second div. Because remember, if we select this div and that expands, this bottom one has to expand as well because they share the same column. Okay, so now underneath this, we're going to use just select that end, which we just added. And here I'm just going to say border right, none. And now you can see that the white border has disappeared, making it look a lot nicer and cleaner. Okay, so now that's our end. Next thing I want to do is just select the grid item, and then we're going to target the title div. Okay, and then here I'm just going to say flex 2 and overflow hidden. Okay, so you remember the title is just these divs, the first div within our grid item div, okay, containing the H2 and H5 elements. And then we'll do the same thing for the image wrap, so that should be grid. Do the same thing for the image wrap. Image wrap. And that should be, sorry, grid item, then selecting the image wrap child, so image -wrap like so. And we're going to initially set the flex to 0, okay, and then we're going to have overflow hidden, and then we also want a transition of 0.3 seconds. Okay, so yeah, initially, the image wraps, you can't see them because we set the flex to 0. Okay, so that means we won't be able to see them, and the flex, the title div has got a flex of 2, so that'll be the full view. So now what I want to do here is we're going to say grid when we apply the grid an active class to the grid item, so say dot grid -item, and then dot active, and then when it is active, when we target the child image wrap, we're just going to say we'll give this a flex of 6. Okay, and actually coming above this, I'm just going to do the same thing for the title. So I'll just copy this, and then we just want to, when we apply the active class, we're just going to say here flex of 2. Just keep that the same flex. But yeah, this one will have a. Actually, let's keep that for now. But I don't think we need to do this actually, because we already set that to 2 up here. But that's fine. We'll leave it there for now, just so we can just say explicitly shows the kind of ratio. So the when the grid item is active, it will be split into kind of 8 sections. The grid image will take up 6 of those sections, and the title will take up 2 of those sections. Okay. So that's it for when our items are active. Next one I do is just select our .image. When you're done with the CSS, guys, there's just 2 more things left. So we're just going to say position. So for image, absolute. And then I'm going to say top 0, left 0. And then we'll say a width of 100%. And a height of 100%, and then we'll say background size, that should be size of cover, and this will just cover the image over the div, and it will preserve the aspect ratio as well, keeping it the same. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do here as well is we're just going to say, we're going to position the image, so we'll just say background position, and we'll just say center, and then yeah, so we're doing the center, and then we're going to initially transform our image, so we just say scale. We want to scale them up to about half a size bigger, so 1.5%, and this will just basically, we're using this, and when we open up the image, basically we'll scale it back down to the original size, just give it that kind of zoom out effect. And then we're just going to say we set the opacity initially at 0. Okay, and then finally here what I'm going to say is when we'll select our grid item, bring this up a bit, and then we're going to say we're going to target the child image wrap, and this is when our grid item is active as well. Image wrap, and here then when it's active we target the image. So when it's active we're just going to say transform scale it back down to the original size of 1, and then we'll say transition, we'll set this to 0.9 seconds, and we'll set the we'll set the opacity to 1. And then I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so that'll do. And that's it for our CSS. Okay, so we can't see images yet. We're going to set these with JavaScript. So let's do that now. Let's come into our JavaScript file. Now, the first thing we want to do here is just want to get our selectors. Okay, so I'm going to first just select the main grid section. So say const grid equals document.query selector. And we'll just say .grid, like so. And then I'm going to select all of our grid items. So we'll say const grid items equals, I'm going to use the array, the spread operator here, and then we can just say document.query selector all, and then we're just going to say .grid item, like so. Okay, so now if we console.log the grid items, you should see we get each of the individual grid items logged to our console. Come here, there's our array, you can see we get them all logged there, so that's working. Okay, so next we want to do here is we're just going to select the grid rows, so say const grid rows equals, again we use a spread operator array, we'll just say document.query selector all, and then .row. And that should be in quotes. Okay. Just check that's showing, and there you go, we have our 2 div rows there. Okay, so that's working great. Now next thing we want to do is we're going to select all of our images. So we'll say const, or image divs rather, we'll say images equals, and then we'll just do the spread operator, document dot query select all, and then we're just going to select all of our image divs. And then finally we'll just say const heading equals document dot query selector, not all this time, and then we'll just say dot heading, like so. Okay, and that's it for our selectors. We can do that console log, don't need that. Right, now next thing we want to do, first thing we want to do is just loop for our images and apply the images from this folder to those. Okay, so to do that, we're just going to say images dot for each. We're going to pass in the image as well as the index of the image. Okay, so that's what this for each method does. It passes in each element of the array together with the actual index of that array. And then what we can do here is I'm just going to say image.style.background image equals, and then we're doing backticks here. We'll say URL. This is like kind of a CSS property, this URL. And then we're going to point it towards the images folder. And then we're just going to use a template literal here. And we're just going to pass in that index. We're going to add one. And then we're just going to say .jpeg. Okay, so let's just make this out so you can see it. And then I need to close that off actually. Okay, so yeah, we're basically just saying, and that should be style. We're just setting the background image to point to that folder. And we're using index +1 because I've basically just named my images 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And obviously the index starts at 0, so that's why I've just added 1 here. Okay, so that's it. You can't see them at the moment. You will see them shortly. So now come underneath this. The next thing we also want to do is I'm just going to add an event listener to each of our grid items. Okay, so let's just loop for our grid items. And I'm going to say for each. And then again, we're going to pass in the item, each item, as well as the item's index. Again, we'll just do a callback here. Okay, and then what we're going to say is we're going to add an event listener to each item. So say item.addEventListener. We'll list out for a click on each item. And then we're going to pass in the event here into a function. And what we're going to do first, we need to check to see if the item we click already has the active class applied. Because if we click on an active item, what we want to do is just make all the items unactive. Okay, because we want to make them just all closed down because, you know, it's already active. So what we're going to first do is just check to see that. So we're just going to say let is active. And we're just going to say e, so the event, where the event occurred, .target. And this will select the element that we've clicked on. And then, so for example, if I just say console.log e.target, you'll see here, if you click on that, you get that div because we clicked on it, okay? e.target. And yeah, what I need to do actually, that's selecting the image div. So I think I may have to set a pointer events of none on those. Sorry, bear with me a second, guys. I just need to think about this because yeah, let's do that actually. So if we come back to our CSS, let's just do that for now. So I'm just going to say .grid item, and then we want to select all the child div elements. Yeah, because you'll see at the moment when we're clicking, we're getting the kind of image class. We don't want that. So I'm just going to set the pointer events to none. Okay, so now we get when we click, we just get the actual, the actual grid item div and not the children. So I've just set the pointer events to none on the grid item children. Okay, because we don't want to be able to click on those for this. Okay, so now you can see we're getting the actual target there. Cool, so that's working. Now, so what I'm saying here is we need to say let is active, and we're just going to say e.target.class. We're going to look at the class list of that target, and then we're just going to check if it contains active, if it's already active. Okay, so let's console.log is active. This should be false. You can see they're all false because they're not active when we load the page. Okay, so that's working. So now, kind of underneath this, next thing I want to do is I'm just going to say, we're just going to loop through all of our grid items. I'm going to say let I equal 0, whilst I is less than grid items dot length I plus plus. And here I'm just going to say, we're just going to basically just remove the active class from one of our grid items when we initially click on a grid item. Okay, so I'll just say grid items I dot class list dot remove active, like so. Now we'll initially remove it, and now we're going to come underneath this and we're going to say if is active. Okay, so that means if the div that we clicked on had the active class initially, then what we're going to say is grid rows. I'm going to select our rows next. I'm going to say dot zero. We're going to apply this to both rows. We're going to say dot style dot height equals, and we're just going to say 50% because we want our rows to come back to the initial, both equal sizes. So we'll set them both to 50%. We'll set that to the second row as well. Okay, so we've adjusted our row height. Now what we need to do is just say we want to loop through all of our grid items again in here, and we just want all of our grid items to come back to normal size as well. So we're just going to remove the expand class. Okay, so that will remove it all, and then once that is the case, we don't want to process anything further in this function. Okay, this event listener. So kind of underneath this, we're just going to say return, just so it doesn't process anything else. Okay, so we've not seen anything yet. That's just going to move on to the next part of the function, the event listener. So we'll come underneath this if is active, and we're going to say grid items. So if this wasn't true, it will skip this if statement and progress down further in the event listener function. So if that wasn't true, we're going to set the grid item, and we're going to pass in the index, which we pass in here in this event listener. So we'll set the grid item index, and we're just going to say dot class list dot add. We're going to add the active class like so. Okay, so now if we click, you can see we kind of get that effect happening now. Okay, so we're adding the active class, and you should see if we click on it, it comes back off. Okay, that's cool. So now what I want to do is, now we've got that working, you can see what I want to do is we're only getting the bottom part. We need to expand this top part to match as well, because it looks a bit weird if we don't do that. So to do that, we're going to create a separate function. Okay, underneath this, I'm just going to say function. We're just going to say set. We'll just say setActive for now. And this takes in an index array. Okay, so we're going to pass an array to this function. And we're just going to say for let I equal 0, whilst I is less than grid items dot length. So we're going to loop through all of our grid items, say I++. And then we're basically just going to say here, if the index array that we pass into this function, if we say if index array dots, we're going to use the includes method. Okay, includes. And then we're just going to say if it includes I, so the number with the iteration, then we're going to pass in the index for each of our grid items. So we're saying we're going to pass in 2, okay? And if this index array includes the iteration, then what we're going to say here is grid items i.classList dot add, and we want to add that expand class, okay? Like so. Else we're going to say grid items i.classList.remove that expand class. Okay, if it's not in that array that we pass in, then we'll remove the expand class. Okay, so that's it for this function. Now let's come back up here into our event listener function underneath this grid items index. And I'm just going to say here, so if the index is equal to 0, let's do that, equal to 0, or the index is equal to 3, then we're going to set that, we're going to use that function, we'll say setActive, and we're just going to pass in the array 0, 3. Okay, so to explain this, what's happening here is you can see now, this is the 0 index, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. Basically, when we click on the first index, we're saying if, so it says here, if index equals 0, it's going to say setActive, and it's going to pass in 0 and 3. And because this 0 and 3 are in that array, it adds the expand class to them. You can see now, if we come here, we have that expand class applied to this div, as well as the first one as well. Expand, expand. Okay, so that's what that function's doing. And we're using that includes function that's built on arrays. You can use this on arrays, and it will say if it includes that index, then add that expand class. So now we just need to do that for the remaining 2 pairs of divs, okay? So we can say underneath this, if index is equal to 1 or index is equal to 4, then we'll say setActive, we'll say 1 and 4. And then we can say, yeah, so the last one will be obviously 2 and 5. Just say setActive, and that should be an array. 2 and 5, like so. Okay, and then finally, just to finish this off, what we want to say here is if the index is less than or equal to 2, so i.e. the top half, if the index, if we click on either the 0 first or second, then we're just going to say grid rows 0.style.height equals, and I'm just going to say 70%. Okay, we want the top row to expand, and then for the second one, put a 1 in there. For the second row, we'll just make that 30%. Else, let's copy this down, and we'll say change these around, so that should be 30, and then that will be 70. Okay, so see what we're working with now. You can see now we get that cool, you can see the rows get bigger now. Okay, so yeah, I think it's looking okay. We just now need to make it so if our grid item's active, yeah, it looks like, because we should still be seeing the title. let's just finish off the JavaScript a second. What I want to do, so let's just, I'm just going to come down to the bottom here. I'm just going to do a set timeout. And I'm going to say heading dot class list dot add. I just want to add the show class. And then I want to set that to 500. And then also, I just want to add another timeout here. And I'm just going to select the grid next. Dot style, and we want to just change the opacity. So just say dot style dot opacity equals 1. Like so. Okay, so now let's come back to our grid. I just need to type, there needs to be a slight change. Let's just set the opacity to 0. So now I just want to change 1000 and okay. For some reason that's transforming really quickly. I'm not sure why. That should be transition. Okay, and then I think what I need to do as well is this. That needs to be a transition as well. Sorry, I've got that wrong there. So I'll say transition. That should be transition. Don't know why I got that wrong. Use it all the time. Okay. So let's see how that's working. See, now we get that fade in. Okay, now what we need to do, something else is going wrong here because I should be seeing the title slightly as well. So I'll just say, go to this grid item. Okay, so we need to display these in Flex, I think. So if we come to our grid item up here, or down here rather, and we need to display Flex. And also, so we'll change Flex, display Flex. Padding of 10 pixels. Right, what is going on? So why is that? I've got the two. So if our grid item is active, the title saying we got the flex too, so why? Sorry about this, guys. I will get to the bottom of this. Maybe it's because don't need that. I don't know why I've included that on there. I have no idea why this isn't working. Maybe it's because I think I know why. Okay, what I need to do here is let the image wrap position relative. There you go. Oh, how did I miss that? Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so now you can see we get that cool effect. Okay, now what I want to do here is I'm just going to set that image wrap. Just set a bit longer. 1.3. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm just going to add that font, because I really like that kind of ivar font. So let's do that now. I'm just going to say font family ivar. We'll point it to that WOF2 file, that ivar display, and I'm just going to say format WOF2. And then I'm just going to put this, I want this in my heading H1, so I just say font family ivar. Okay, you can see we've got a nice ivar font there, and I also want to just apply this to my H2s as well, so I just say font family ivar, like so. Okay, so I like that font, that looks better, looks cool. Obviously use whatever font you want. I just don't like the way that kind of zooms out. I think that can look a bit nicer, because I think it goes away too abruptly, the image. So let's just set all that now as well. So if I say, just do a transition of 0.3 seconds. Okay, so let's just see, get a nice fade in, that's looking cool. Okay, right, yeah, that looks better. Alright, yeah, sorry guys, that took a while, so there you go. There's your gallery, so you can see now we get a nice subtle fade away. I just had to update the image item there. Okay, so yeah, I hope you got a lot out of this tutorial, guys. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I think yeah, it's a nice effect. You get that nice kind of zoom in there, or zoom out rather, when you click on the relevant image. Okay, so yeah, it looks pretty cool. Yeah, as I say, thanks for watching. Any comments or questions, leave me a comment and I'll try my best to answer. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.